in Numbers all of tonight, and most likely next week as well. So Numbers chapter 12 is where we are starting tonight. Now, tonight, as we are, what we're looking at first, in Numbers chapter 12, there is one, well, I guess you can say more than one, but I mean, one big thing that we're seeing about Moses, but then we are going to see a picture, especially of Miriam, in what she has, the type of person she has gotten to at this point in her life. Of course, so we know her, we know Miriam most vividly, or the most popular thing that people know about her is she was the sister that kept watch over baby Moses while baby Moses was in that little waterproof basket to save his life, floating in the river. And she was the one that technically risked her life by running up to the princess, to go and when the princess found baby Moses, and she risked her life to go up and say, you need a nurse. I know the perfect person, who of course was Moses' mother. And so anyways, that is the main and most popular thing that the people know about Miriam. You don't see Miriam mentioned a whole lot. There is one other time that she is mentioned kind of quickly. It's at the crossing of the Red Sea, or just after the crossing of the Red Sea, and the blessing that God gave there, how he delivered the Israelite nation. And we see that she was one at that point, okay, who was very, how can I put it? I can't think of the term I'm looking for, but she really displayed her faith and her thankfulness on the outside. I can't think of the term I'm looking for that I want to use, but anyways, because it said that as they sang songs and stuff, or a lot of times when they sang songs, it was not necessarily music involved, and it says, that she picked up I think it was the timbrel, and that sort of thing, and they really turned what may have been a little bit more of a quiet praising of God right at that point into
more of a celebration.
Yeah, more of a celebration. Sort of a thing. It took it from just a small little praise session to sort of a more of a big celebration and that sort of thing. And so Miriam, obviously, we're going to see here tonight, Miriam and Aaron, but so obviously they have been throughout this whole journey that the Israelite nation has been through in the wilderness. They have been there for everything that we have looked at with Moses. We've seen Aaron mentioned a couple times, have not seen Miriam mentioned until this point, and I believe that's because what we see tonight is really a change of heart. Going from one praising God for his deliverance, praising God for his blessings, to one of jealousy. So what I'm going to do first, and I think it's going to be beneficial to this, is I'm going to read through the whole chapter first, and then we will pick it apart a little bit and do a little bit of explanation. So starting right in verse 1 of chapter 12. And Miriam and Aaron spake against Moses because of the Ethiopian woman whom he had married, for he had married an Ethiopian woman. And they said, Hath the Lord indeed spoken only by Moses? Hath he not spoken also by us? And the Lord heard it. Now the man Moses was very meek above all the men which were upon the face of the earth. And the Lord spake suddenly unto Moses, and unto Aaron, and unto Miriam, Come out, ye three, unto the tabernacle of the congregation. And they three came out. And the Lord came down in the pillar of the cloud, and stood in the door of the tabernacle, and called Aaron and Miriam, and they both came forth. And he said, Hear now my words. If there be a prophet among you, I, the Lord, will make myself known unto him in a vision, and will speak unto him in a dream. My servant Moses is not so, who is faithful in all mine house. With him will I speak mouth to mouth, even apparently, and not in dark speeches, and the similitude of the Lord shall he behold. Wherefore then were ye not afraid to speak against my servant Moses? And the anger of the Lord was kindled against them, and he departed. And the cloud departed from off the tabernacle, and behold, Miriam became leprous, white as snow. And Aaron looked upon Miriam, and behold, she was leprous. And Aaron said unto Moses, Alas, my Lord, I beseech thee, lay not a sin upon us, wherein we have done foolishly, and wherein we have sinned. Let her not be as one dead, of whom the flesh is half consumed, when he cometh out of his mother's womb. And Moses cried unto the Lord, saying, Heal her now, O God, I beseech thee. And the Lord said unto Moses, If her father had but spit in her face, should she not be ashamed 7 days? Let her be shut out from the camp 7 days, and after that let her be received in again. And Miriam was shut out from the camp 7 days, and the people journeyed not till Miriam was brought in again. And afterward the people were moved from Hazeroth and pitched in the wilderness of Paran. Okay, so obviously just from reading that, you know something really big is going on, and obviously that Miriam really got punished, okay? And what we are seeing is jealousy. Now, one thing that I do want to make sure that you guys understand is when you first read it, when you first start reading this this chapter, you notice one thing that is different than let's say than usual in that day and age. If they're going to list male and female together, the male's name is always first. You notice this time, Miriam's is first. Okay? Now that is because what this chapter is mainly focusing on is the sin of jealousy. And one thing I have read, I looked into this across a bunch of different commentaries and different things, and this is what I will call a popular speculation, okay, is that the main reason why her name is listed first, and you see that she is the one punished, is because she was the one with the sin in her, you could say with the sin, that deep sin of jealousy in her heart, and Aaron was really a follower. And you can see that a lot throughout it. So it didn't take a whole lot for her to convince him to go along with it, sort of thing. So, what's that?
I think she was the big sister in the picture.
Yes. I believe, I want to say that you're correct. I believe Miriam is the oldest out of them. But anyway, so I mean, when you're looking at that, like I said, that is I use the term popular speculation on that. That is not out of the Bible. That is a bunch of different people studying over the same text, and essentially they're all coming up with the same idea in their head as to why it was that she was the one that was punished in this. And Aaron, if you want to call it a punishment, his punishment was seeing his older sister in that state,
You wanna
and
make-
that there was nothing he could do about it.
You wanna make a statement? Punish gang leader.
Yeah. So getting back into the text though, so what we are seeing right off in verse 1, as I said, so it says Miriam and Aaron spake against Moses because of the Ethiopian woman who he had married. So there is, of course, you may think, well, wait a second. I thought that he married a Midianite. You know, that priest's daughter. That is correct. But the Midianites, no, they were not Ethiopians.
You're right.
No, they were from different sides of the Red Sea. So, in other words, he is, unless if, because does not that I could find, it does not mention his, what was her name? Zipporah, I think it was. It does not mention Zipporah going forward. So whether, for whatever reason, she may have died in this journey at this point, and so he remarried, or if not, it was, he has married in this case, you'd have a second wife. But you notice, okay, it pulls out Ethiopian woman. That is because, that is meaning here he is supposed to be the leader of the Israelite nation, but he married someone that was not an Israelite. Okay, so one thing that we can bring from this too, from what we looked at last week, you know, with the whole situation with the quails and a lot of those mixed marriages, the people who were Israelite only by marriage. Obviously, not all of them were died in that plague that came through after their lust and their sin and everything, because if that was the case, Moses would not have had this Ethiopian wife. But anyways, they are upset because here they feel, and you can see it in verse 2, they said, hath the Lord indeed spoken only by Moses? Has he not spoken also by us? They're just like, wait a second. Here he is marrying someone that he should not be. You know, he's not a perfect person. You know, we work on God's behalf too. God has used us for his work. Why is it that he is the one, you know, nobody had a say in this, as to him being the leader of the Israelite nation. There was no vote that went out. There was, nobody had any input. It was just all of a sudden he showed up and he's suddenly the leader. And so like I said, popular speculation, but Miriam had this in her heart, and many believe that what it was sort of him being the younger, Aaron being the younger brother, sort of just followed suit with her. And, oh yeah, I mean that is true, you know, even if he didn't fully, you could say, believe it and follow that. It was a sort of thing of supporting his sister.
Is this before or after the Ten Commandment thing?
This is after the Ten Commandments.
After that whole thing?
Yes, it
She
is.
was involved in that.
Well, see, that's what I'm wondering too, because we see that Aaron was the one that made the golden calf, but just seeing this, of how Miriam had such a, now this is my own speculation, okay? This is my own, is that I wonder if, since Aaron appears to be kind of we'll call it a pushover with his sister, is if Miriam had a hand in that. You know, Moses is gone, he's been gone a long time, the people are convinced, I don't know. But that is one thing, like you brought up, Patty, that that came across my mind as I was going through this. I wonder if she had a hand in that as well. Now you notice,
She lacked humility
yes,
in a way, and God doesn't like it when you become proud.
oh yeah,
arrogant.
right, exactly, and that is exactly what we're seeing here. We're seeing pride, arrogance, and what comes with that? Jealousy. I mean, they really do go hand in hand.
I
And
think
you
you
notice,
see that in verse 3,
yeah,
with the fact that God specifically says Moses was a very humble man.
yes,
Moses was a very humble man, so what was Miriam and Aaron?
right,
You know, the way I look at it, they must have been just the opposite. They must have been,
right, yes. And now I don't want to put Aaron in a light of total innocence. Because if he was in the light of total innocence, I don't think his name would have been listed there in verse 1. It would have just said, and Miriam spake against Moses, you know. So yes, he was. I just think that if, like I said, I think Miriam was kind of the ringleader of it.
and Aaron was a follower.
Yes,
I mean, he followed Moses.
yeah, right from the
Miriam.
get-go. Yes, he was, right from the get-go. He is, we can see that. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. There are leaders and there are followers, you know, and that's the way I believe God designed it, you know, and everything. So,
So he should have had a little more gumption, right?
I'm sorry.
He was a priest, so he should have had a little more gumption.
Yes, he definitely should have. Because I mean, we had already seen in Leviticus, you know, him and his sons were consecrated or ordained as the priests and everything. So he should have been more outspoken, you know, in that sense. He should have, but I think it really does come down to that whole thing of his relationship with his sister, you know, and the fact that she is right from, I mean, the get-go has been strong-headed. I mean, even as, you know, maybe the type of person that acts before they thinks. You know, we see it as the young girl. You know, she very well could have been imprisoned or killed just from all of a sudden rushing out and going right towards the princess. I mean, that's a big thing. The princess would not have been alone with just her maidens. There would have been royal guards there too, that had the authority to do whatever they wanted, up to and including killing if they felt it was needed. Okay, so right from the get-go with Miriam, we see that she is very strong-willed, very strong-headed, and everything, in the way that she handles things. But yeah, so we see at the end of verse 2, and the Lord heard it. So why would that little bit be put there? I mean, we as Christians, okay, we know God hears everything. I think this tells us the hearts, which also plays into question, you know, wait a second, that doesn't seem right because Aaron was a priest, is that these contentions that we're seeing where they spoke against Moses, it doesn't mean they're getting up on a soapbox and trying to convince people, okay? This means they're whispering in amongst themselves. They're talking in amongst themselves and about how, who is he? You know, he does bad things too. You know, we didn't get a vote in on this, and, you know, yada, yada, yada. And the Lord heard it, as in, I really read that as they had in their heads, we're whispering, nobody's going to know that we are talking about this right now. You know, it's this secret just between brother and sister.
So that ought to be a note for all of us. We better be careful what we're thinking and saying in private.
Right, exactly. Yeah, God does hear everything. And but then yes, like Pastor had pointed out in verse 3, that Moses was very meek. And not was he just very meek, but he was more meek or humble above all the men which were upon the face of the earth. He was the most humble, okay? And if anyone, you could say was, how can I put this? If anyone at that time was to have have an excuse, I'll put it that way, to have a proud heart, you would think that it would be Moses, okay? Because he had, even though he'd grown up in the palace, remember, he killed an Egyptian, hid for 40 years in the wilderness for fear of his life. And then God called him back to go to Egypt to be this leader. And now, even though he, if you remember, he came up with every excuse he could try and think of, to the point when God finally said, okay, fine, whatever, here's your brother Aaron to speak with you, okay? He didn't want to do it. But now, look at everything, look at all the times God has used him as essentially as a tool. Look how God has used him throughout this time since the plagues in Egypt up until this time. You know, a person could very easily get prideful, could get boastful. Oh yeah, look how much God loves me. Look what God has done through me. Even though, they would be saying, look what God has done through me, they're doing it in a way to be boastful, So, is that what we see here? Not at all. God looked on him and God said he was the most humble man in the whole world at that point.
That's for a couple of reasons. First of all, the fact that he killed the Egyptian, he had to be in hiding. He learned a humble heart. He learned that his temper and everything had to be worked on.
Oh, yes.
And then standing before the Lord, that burning bush, I'm pretty sure that humbled him to about 6 inches under the dust.
Right, but the thing is, especially with someone like Moses, because even though he had to learn humility and everything in that 40 years when he was in the wilderness as a shepherd and all of that sort of thing, it doesn't change the fact that he had 40 years in the palace. So even after those 40 years of humility, it could have been, for anyone in his position, it could have been easy to kind of go back to that original 40 years of being being essentially spoiled. He would have been in the palace. So everything at his disposal. Okay, anything he possibly wanted, he would have had. So it would have been easy for him to, and yet, no. We see that God says he was the most humble. And we see also at this point that it is true. You notice it doesn't say in verse 4 that the Lord spake unto Moses to bring Miriam and Aaron in. Okay? He spoke to each one of them. God actually spoke to Moses, he spoke to Aaron, and he spoke to Miriam, and had them come up to the tabernacle. And it said, obviously, they came up. And it says, the Lord came, verse 5, the Lord came down in the pillar of the cloud and stood in the door of the tabernacle and called Aaron and Miriam, and they both came forth. Being that the two of them were called forward, I can only imagine what was going through their mind. That's the whole, what I would think would be called to the principal's office,
I was just thinking that. Where, back in my history, I said, wow, you go to the principal's office and there's God sitting here.
Yeah.
Whoa, now that's...
And then, not just getting called to the principal's office, but your name being one of the ones, come here.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh no.
Somebody in the
We
door.
wear cotton.
Uses your name, you are.
Yes. So anyways, so they, obviously they do it, they were told. They both, it says in verse 5, they both came forth. Now, I'm going to tell you exactly, essentially what this means. So verse 6 can be, verse 6 and 7, really verse 8 as well. I'll try and sum it up, change wording a little bit. Okay, so I'll just read it again as it's written. And he said, "Hear now my words. If there be a prophet among you, I, the Lord, will make myself known unto him in a vision, and I will speak unto him in a dream. My servant Moses is not so, who is faithful in all mine house. With him will I speak mouth to mouth, even apparently, and not in dark speeches, and the similitude of the Lord shall he behold. Wherefore then were ye not afraid to speak against my servant Moses?" He's saying, look, this is how I speak to prophets. Okay? When there is a prophet, okay, I will come to him in visions, in dreams, and that sort of thing. Okay? That is how I speak to prophets. And however, my servant Moses is not so. You know, my servant Moses is not just a prophet. Okay? He is more than that, because I don't come to him in dreams and in visions. I come and I speak to him face to face. You know, obviously, couldn't see God's face, but speaks to him. Actual, like I am speaking to you guys right now. God says, I come down and I speak to him. And then what he says in the end of verse 8, I think this is when it would have really made Aaron and Miriam sort of start shaking in their boots, sort of a thing, is because so far God has kind of alluded to this conversation that Aaron and Miriam had speaking against Moses, but this is where he really comes out and shows, I heard what you were saying. And that's, wherefore then were ye not afraid to speak against my servant Moses? He goes, what is your place? Who do you think you are to speak out against my servant Moses? Against I will go as far as to say, my friend Moses.
I think the end of verse 7 says it very well, Nate, where he goes and says, he is faithful in all my house. He is.
Yes, exactly. This is the one that has been faithful. I'll put it this way, once I convinced him, to serve me, he has now been faithful up until this point. I mean, yes, he's done things wrong, but what does that prove? He's human. Right, exactly.
But they also forgot one tiny little thing. God chose Moses. Moses didn't suddenly get that position because he built himself up.
Exactly.
It was God who drew him out. It was God who established it.
Right, exactly. So on that, who are they to speak against his servant? He was the one that placed him in there. It's not, they had, and he is saying, you could say confirming what they had originally been thinking and talking about. No, you didn't have a say in it. I was the one that made this decision. Moses is my servant, okay? He is my spokesman, He is the one that I am using now. You guys ought to feel lucky anytime that I might choose to use you as well, okay? And it's just, it's so big. It's easy to get stuck on this.
This puts what, I think it's Peter who goes and says, you will not speak evil against God's elect.
Yes. Yeah.
the apostles said, you know.
Right.
You just don't do it.
Right, exactly. I mean, and that, you know, I think really plays into what I had said before, that the speculation that this was something that was building and boiling in Miriam's heart for a long time. And, you know, it was something more presented to Aaron, and Aaron kind of went along with it. She was the one that was targeting. And she went after, but she didn't want to be alone in it. So she went after somebody that she knew she could easily control and manipulate. Which, I mean, though, as Patty said, being a priest, he shouldn't have been that easily manipulated or controlled or whatever. But he was, anyways. So, verse 9. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against them, and he departed. You notice, he called, did he call Miriam and Aaron to the tabernacle? He called them, but he also called Moses. He never once spoke to Moses. He brought all three of them there, but only called Aaron and Miriam forward, you could say, and spoke to them. He never once. Exactly.
What was that?
Moses was his witness,
yeah,
in the sense of it, you know. And let's see. And then verse 10: and the cloud departed from off the tabernacle, and we're not talking about over time. Instantly, okay. Instantly, and behold, Miriam became leprous, white as snow, and Aaron looked upon Miriam, and behold, she was leprous. Now, so obviously, looking at this and how we have seen this, Miriam is getting the brunt of it, obviously. Because this is not something where, leprosy is just starting. She went from being a healthy woman to being riddled, white as snow. Just essentially, this would have been sort of a head to foot, where it was extremely advanced case of leprosy. Meaning, you know, and once they're that far gone, it's not going to be too awful long probably until, you know, certain different parts start falling off.
Fingers, noses, ears.
Yeah, start falling off and that sort of thing. That's how bad it is for her, and she got that way instantly. But in this, God did punish Aaron. He knew what type of punishment would be best for each person in this. This part, leprosy, was what God seemed fit for somebody so strong-willed and bullheaded as Miriam. But what better way to punish Aaron? Obviously, he admired his sister than to see his sister all of a sudden in this state.
Peer pressure really gets you.
And because it says, Aaron looked upon Miriam, and behold, she was leprous. And Aaron said to Moses, you notice Aaron is all of a sudden just seeing the error of his ways, because he doesn't say, brother Moses, he says, my Lord Moses. This is him signifying that that's all he needed. That's all he needed in this case, was just to see the torment that his sister was in. That punishment, it was punishment enough for him to see his place, see his position that God has put him in, and for him to truly understand that that Moses is God's choice to be the leader. He says, my Lord, I beseech thee, I beg thee, lay not the sin upon us wherein we have done foolishly, and wherein we have sinned. He's coming right out. Yeah, we were stupid in even thinking this. Yes, we sinned, but please take this away. Verse 12, let her not be as one dead, of whom the flesh is half consumed, when he comes out of his mother's womb. And Moses at this point, okay, verse 13, cries unto the Lord, saying, heal her now, O God, I beseech thee. How many times have we, in our prayer life, used that term, that one word with God? And how many times has it worked? Now. Yeah, that's one thing I have to say. You know, that was my thing. Part of my testimony, it's not for tonight, but, you know, that was my issue too. I wanted God to give me what I wanted now, and God said, no, not now. And that's exactly what we're seeing here too. Moses cried, and he said, heal her now, O God, I beseech, or I beg thee. And then the Lord goes on and to tell him, and he uses a reference that he would have, that they would have been very very well known in that culture, and if her father but spit in her face, should she not be ashamed 7 days? So God used that term. He said, let her be shut out from the camp 7 days. And after that, let her be received in again. Now, is this something, is there a deeper, not meaning, but is there more to this really than what meets the eye? We don't know. We don't know for certain. It doesn't say. Was this 7 days meant as a lesson, like for the whole Israelite nation to see, okay, that God's in control? Or was it that God knew if he was to heal Miriam right then and now, okay, that Miriam wouldn't just go after a short time right back to her jealous and prideful ways, okay? It may have been that he's seen, you know what, no. She needs a week, you know? A 5-minute timeout is not enough for her. You know, she needs to be grounded for a month. You know, that sort of thing, okay?
Some children need spankings, some need just to be set aside.
It all depends on, yes, exactly. And I mean, we are all, I mean, including Miriam, Moses, Aaron, we are God's children. At times, God has to spank us, and just like this, you know, Aaron didn't need as harsh of a punishment to learn as what Miriam obviously needed in this case.
And maybe he was also showing Moses, it's like, we're buds, but you don't tell me now.
Yeah, exactly. You know, no, I don't, exactly. That's, I like the way you pointed that out, though, the way you said that, Jeff. You know, just that thing of, yes, you can call on me. You have called on me before saying help, and I have helped. However, you don't give me a timeline, a time frame.
It's like a parent with a child. And
Yeah.
you know, you could be best buds or whatever, you know, you can have fun, whatever, but I'm your parent.
Yes, exactly. You know, and I mean, I guarantee every one of us, I think, yes, every one of us in here are all parents, okay? I am sure that every one of us have experienced this as parents with our kids, especially at younger ages. Yes, we are going to go do that. I told you we'd do it. But I want to do it now. Well, too bad. You know, and I'm really kind of seeing that here too. God is saying, you want it now? Too bad. That's not the way it's going to happen. Okay? You don't tell me how to do my job. And although we do see that God does show that that he is in control, like fully in control. You know, not only did she all of a sudden come down leprous, you notice after that 7 days that he kept his word. Miriam, verse verse 15, and Miriam was shut out from the camp 7 days, and the people journeyed not till Miriam was brought in again. Okay, so that meaning at the end of the 7 days, she would have been brought back in. She would have only been brought back in if she was clean. Okay, so that's also a testament to God's power, in the sense of he took her from totally healthy to, I'll use the term stage 4 leprosy, and then in 7 days took it from stage 4 leprosy to healthy again. Now, I wonder, this is just the way my brain works. I really wonder if maybe those 6 days she showed no improvement. In the sense of that way it would truly be a punishment for her. And then just on the 7th day, he, on day 7, that's when he healed her. Or else, yeah, she would have still had leprosy, but she would have seen such advancements every single day. It's just, like I said, that's the way my brain works.
It's also a big message to the Israel nation.
Yes.
On top of that, because they had to see her separated with leprosy.
Right. That's what I'm saying. That's what I was saying. Was it truly just God punishing Miriam for that 7 days because that's what she needed? Or was there a lot more in that? Was it not just for her, but also for Moses and Aaron, but then also exactly the whole Israelite nation? They're used to being on the move as well. And here you notice, they stayed. And they camped in that same spot for that 7 days. They stayed there while Miriam was put out of the camp, while she was segregated from them. They did not move. They did not journey at all. They stayed there. So, if anything, if you get anything out of tonight, you can see that God does not like a prideful or jealous heart. So in other words, even if you get nothing else from tonight, that's definitely a very good thing you can get from tonight. That God does not like a prideful and jealous heart.
Well, she not only, because she was a woman, I realized she was in a position of some sort of power, but she was still a woman, and that she was usurping her womanhood.
In that culture and
Culture
everything.
that
Yes.
was not.
Right, and that is true. She is.
The male was to be the head of the household, as Christ is the head of the church, or God is the head of the whole thing.
Right.
And she was trying to do this.
Yes. And I think that she probably took advantage, I'm sure, of that with Aaron as much as possible, but I'm sure with Moses too. In the sense of, she was Moses' big sister. So I'm sure that with a lot of things, Moses probably gave her leniency as well, with certain things that may have allowed her to get to this point in her life. I'm not saying that, it's all Moses' fault. I'm just saying, it's that sort of situation. Even to this day, it's never a good idea having, and that's why many workplaces and businesses won't allow family members to be, like one be manager and one be under them, that sort of thing. A lot of workplaces won't allow that because of that sort of thing,
I have to wonder if with the authority or the positions Aaron had and the position Moses had, I would not be surprised if you dug a little deeper, you'd find that Miriam may even have been a prophetess.
Well, I thought she was.
She was.
She was,
I thought she was.
Yeah.
Yes.
I feel like, let me see, I actually might be able to tell you right where.
Right, the first couple of verses tells you.
What?
Exodus chapter 15, verse 20. says, and Miriam the prophetess,
Yeah.
the sister of Aaron. So that's, I mean, so that also plays into where God had said, this is how, I think up until this time, so this was probably the first time when he called them to the tabernacle. This is the first time that God has actually spoken directly in this way to Aaron and to Miriam. Every other time, then I think that, so that really works together and helps us to understand it a little more, why he would explain. It's like, this is the way I speak to a prophet, and Miriam, you're a prophet or prophetess, so you know this. I speak to you. How do I speak to you though? Dreams and visions. This is how I speak to you, because this is your place. Moses is not there. Okay, he is, I hold him, you could say, in a higher rank. Okay, this is where I have put him, and essentially, it's not your place. Okay, I put him there.
If God puts somebody somewhere, then don't try.
Oh, I mean, just like, where did you say that was, Pastor? Would you say, was it Peter that
I
said?
think Peter goes and says that you will not bring a charge against God's elect.
Yeah, so it's just like,
Even against God's elect.
right? Yeah, I mean, who knows? I mean, Peter too may have, whether through his own dealings, his own experiences, or through possibly reading of the, because at that time, of course, that's all they had.
Yeah, they had the
They had the Pentateuch. They had the Old Testament. They had those writings, that part to be able to study in that. So Peter may have very well gotten that from this passage.
Absolutely.
But
You
you
know?
notice that he was humbled before he could come to that point. And,
Yeah.
and that's a very big thing. I know in my relationship, somebody has asked me to pastor for a job, and I'll say what I did for jobs in the church. And then I'll look at them and say, but I didn't do that, and they just give me this one. I'm just the person he chose. He did it, but he used me to do it. Because I wouldn't have been able to do it on my own.
Right.
And they're like scratching your head.
I mean, you can, exactly. I mean, I've said that before, and I know Pastor can, this sort of thing too. It doesn't matter how much preparation that a pastor or a person puts into preparing a message.
And ask God.
Let me tell you, when you get up there and start preaching it, there could be half of your notes that you don't even reference at all, and yet there's tons of stuff that you never thought of at all, and all those hours of study never even came to your mind, and yet it's all of a sudden coming out of your mouth up there. Why?
Or 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and he taps you on the shoulder and says, "You're not going to do that."
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I got to talk to you.
Anyway, so that's all we have time for tonight. Was just looking at that. Next week we are going to look at the Israelite nation arrives, I will put it, in sight of Canaan, of the Promised Land, and that's when they send in some spies, send in some people to check out the land, to see what it looks like, and the inhabitants and all of that. So, but anyways, that is for next week. Let's close in prayer. Heavenly Father, Lord, I thank you so much, Lord, for your word, and Lord, the great many lessons, Lord, that we can learn from your word, and Lord, there are many different lessons, Lord, that we can get from tonight. But Lord, I just pray that anyone here or watching, Lord, that we would learn from this, Lord, that we would always remember, Lord, when it comes to a prideful, jealous heart, Lord, you don't like it. I mean, it's plain as simple as that. But then also, Lord, may we also remember it in our relationship with you, in our prayer life with you, Lord, that we ask anything of you. But Lord, we should never expect you to do what we want when we want it. Lord, we thank you for your ultimate, your ongoing power, your power to do anything that we need. But Lord, I just ask your blessing on these people tonight, Lord, and on this church here in Athens. Ask this in your name. Amen.